Hello, everybody, and welcome to Event Icons, where you get to chat with the icons of the event industry. I'm Brandt Krueger, and today we're going to be talking all about augmented and virtual reality with its immersive experience and how it's going to be transforming the way that we interact with the world around us. Meetings and hospitality industry may be a little bit slower to adopt this technology, but today our guest Sandy Hammer is going to share what she sees as being the next big revolution when it comes to site visits. How can venues use the technology to differentiate, and what a truly interactive, collaborative planning environment could look like for everybody involved. So stay tuned. We're going to hear about that in just a moment.
It's Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, so you know what that means. It's time for another episode of #Event Icons, presented by Endless Events, the show where you get to ask the icons of the events industry anything. Use the question panel on the webinar to submit your questions, or you can hop on Twitter. Submit your questions with #Event Icons. We'll be answering your questions live during the entire show. Before we get started, the more people we have watching, the better conversation we can have. So please help share #Event Icons on Twitter and Facebook. Just tell your friends to watch at www.event-icons.com. Now, without any further delay, this is #Event Icons.
All right, let's get to this. We're talking with Sandy Hammer today. Sandy has over 20 years of experience in the international events industry and created All Seated to revolutionize and digitize the event planning process. With experience in the publishing, art, and high-tech industries, Sandy previously founded Conference Art, a company that produces corporate conferences, seminars, forums, and brokerage events around the world for customers such as Orange Global, Telefonica, and O2 UK, as well as many startups in Israel and the UK. Welcome, Sandy.
Hey, can I hire you? I love the way you did my intro.
Of course.
That was amazing.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
I did it in
Really
one take.
happy to be here. Yeah, I'm very impressed.
Well, it's a little late where you are. Where are you calling in from tonight?
I'm calling in from Tel Aviv, Israel. We have our R&D center here, so it is a little late, but we're very used to it, and I have a warm cup of tea. I apologize if my voice is a little hoarse, but I'm just getting over a cold, but I'm good. I'm all good, and I got a nice sunny day tomorrow to wake up to, and not as cold as what you've got going on in Minnesota, or is it finished now? Your thunder snowing.
I got to enlighten Sandy about the majesty of thunder snow, which was something that we got to experience last week here in Minnesota, as Mother Nature gave us her last side eye on the way out as we head into spring. And I'm being joined today, of course, by co-host Lindsay Martin-Bilbrey. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. We've been dodging softball-sized hail, 90-degree delightful weather, and a little bit of tornadoes. Maybe. No one's really knowing. So I will take thunder snow, or maybe the weather you have in Tel Aviv, Sandy. It sounds beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It is. I'm lucky. I'm happy to be here this week. Okay,
nice.
Yes.
Okay, so here you get to start with the softballs, right? We get the softball questions that we start with everybody
Sure.
that comes on Event Icons. And that is, first, what got you into the industry? And if you weren't in the events industry, what would you be doing?
So I'll start backwards, because what will I be doing takes all of 1 second to answer. I would definitely be, I think, in Mexico at a tiki, like one of those tiki houses. I think running a nice little restaurant, having a few margaritas every hour, just sitting around, relaxing. I think that would definitely be the total opposite of what I'm doing today. But no, I'm very excited with what I'm doing today. I came into this industry, I came into All Seated because I was in the industry. I always say I was probably the most frustrated corporate planner in the industry, because before I started Conference Arts, or really as I came into Conference Arts, I was working for a high-tech company as a corporate planner. And I did a lot of consulting at the same time and running conferences. So I was in the world of conferences, mainly on the corporate side, but all for high-tech companies. So while we were the professionals out there really knowing what we were doing, we had no tools, we had nothing. We were running events for big budgets, like a lot of money, running around with papers and pens and rulers and drawing out our floor plans and trying to be architects and CAD designers and all the things that we really were not. And a lot of mistakes are made. And when a mistake's made, it's money. Mistakes in events can cost a lot of money. And I think that my just frustrations grew to the point, it was the year that Uber had digitalized the entire taxi industry. And I said to myself, okay, this is ridiculous. It's not that complicated. We can build something. And that was it. That's how it went.
Well, and so, I mean, Allseed has been in the news more recently because of the work that's being done in their augmented reality. Was that kind of there from the beginning, or was that, or did you kind of evolve into that a little bit?
So we're mainly in virtual reality, but I would like to talk a little bit about augmented reality. It's fine. It's actually, I always like to start off by explaining to the audience a little differences between virtual reality and augmented reality. A lot of people use it as a lot of the same terminology, and there is a lot of similarities in it. There really is. But virtual reality is, I'm sitting here on my couch at home, sitting on the beach in Mexico. I put on a pair of virtual reality goggles and I'm totally transported and transferred into a virtual world, into a space, right? And augmented reality, the difference between augmented reality is that I am actually standing in the plaza in New York in an empty hall, but I'm actually physically standing there. And then I want to drop in how the event will actually look. So there are the two differences, and I'm going to explain to you why we actually went with the virtual reality, even though we do have an augmented reality solution, but why we believe and we put most of our funding and our money on the virtual reality side. Okay.
Well, and just so everybody knows, before the show, she specifically asked me not to call it augmented reality. And it's like when somebody says, don't think about the big pink elephant. That's the first thing that comes into your mind.
Which is
the big pink elephant. So as soon as it came out of my mouth, I was like, no, bad host. Bad host. No biscuit.
All right. It's all good.
So tell us about your virtual reality offerings.
So we did not start with virtual reality. We started in 2012. We came out with the beta testing. Now, my developers and my business partner is actually from the gaming industry. So virtual reality was something that we had a set of something. I actually don't really know what the hell it was. I didn't play with it. I didn't even go into that room. But there was a room where people were banging away and killing each other, like the gamers do in the gaming environment. And as most of us know, virtual reality existed in the gaming environment close to 20 years ago. It just was never mainstream. So it came about in 2014. I kid you not when I tell you that I got a call in the middle of the night around 2:00 in the morning, which, actually in, considering I'm in a lot of different time zones, it's not, it's not so unusual, I should say. But this was from a very excited Daniel, who's my business partner, who said to me, we've got some unbelievable news. Mark Zuckerberg has bought Oculus Go, which actually meant absolutely nothing to me. And I was like, no, Oculus Go, he bought Oculus. And I was like, excellent. Can I go back to sleep now? Is there anything that I really need to know about at 2:00 in the morning? But obviously, there was a lot of excitement because developers get very excited. They understand technology. They're forward thinkers. They're visionaries. They really know what's going on in the industry. And the other thing that happened is that for, I would say, around 2 years, something was going on in the background. Developers, they do their work and then they love to play and they love to tinker. They love to, always doing something else, So fast forward to 2 years, in 2016, I get another call. This is about 4:00 in the morning. And this time I hear a lot of noise. There's like a lot of people around and I'm like, what's going on? Like, it's 4:00 in the morning. He's like, everyone's in the office. You have to come in. I'm like, it's 4:00 in the morning. I'm not coming in. Like, are you out of your mind? He's like, no, you have to come in. You have to come in. So I get out of my pajamas. And luckily I live quite close to the office. This was in Tel Aviv in 2016. And I go into the office and it's like broad daylight, everybody's like totally hyped and lots of boxes of pizza around and zero Coke and all of that, typical development food. And the Oculus Rift had arrived. And the Oculus Rift, as I think you mentioned earlier, you've been inside that environment. They were one of the first real powerful goggles that came about to the market, really on a consumer side. They weren't really overwhelming with a lot of the extra, wires and everything. They were hooked up to a powerful computer, but they were much more sort of a lighter frame and very easy to maneuver. Anyway, I put them on. I have to tell you, that's when I saw the future. Okay, so in 2016, that's when I saw it. I really saw the future because they'd been building in the background and they had something to show us. And it was amazing. So we're just jumping right in here.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me personally, like I only heard of you guys more recently, but I knew maybe you'd been around for longer than that. So that's why I was curious kind of where that came into the process of where this kind of virtual reality thing started to come to. So I'm curious, just because we were kind of talking pre-show and things like that you're all over the time zones and that you're traveling more than your home. How is that working for you personally, and has anything interesting happened along the way?
So people ask me, where do I live? And I always say I live on 28D. So that's my seat on the plane. It's a window seat, very nice window seat. I've taken claim off. Please note, it's not business class. So we do a lot of travel, get no benefits, but I do get around. And while you're traveling, there's always interesting stories that happen. There's no question about it. So I had a recent experience because I've been traveling on a few different airlines. Usually I just go on United. I'll do a little United plug, which are a great airline, but apparently they've been switching a lot of planes lately. So I ended up going on another airline, which I'm going to make you guess who the airline is based on my story. Okay, so we'll play a guessing game here. So as being a frequent flyer, when the steward comes on or the stewardess comes on and starts the whole, directions of the safety directions and the safety issues, we're all already plugged in. I have these fantastic new speakers that are, I can't hear anything. I can, noise cancellation. So we hear nothing. We don't even look up. We don't do anything, which is, quite common. A lot of people on planes that travel a lot are in that mode. So all of a sudden, we see someone, this quite handsome guy standing up there in a uniform, and he starts talking, which all of us just tune out. And then all of a sudden, I can hear in my noise cancellation some kind of a song. Somebody's like, so I switch it off, and there's an opera sound coming out. This guy has broken into an opera sound, and all of a sudden he goes, now I have your attention. Okay, are you listening? Everybody looked up, and he goes, not only do I have your attention, but I am the captain of this airplane, and I'm going to insist that you all listen to the safety rules, and I'm not flying until everybody nods and I can see that everyone is paying attention. It was like being in school. I'd never seen anything like it. Anyway, we all sat there not saying a word and thanking him very kindly afterwards for giving us his time and telling us all the safety instructions. So what airline is crazy enough to do that? Are you a traveler?
I am. But but
that's not American.
Yeah.
No, it's not American, Lindsay. You're right. It's not American.
It's not Delta. Yeah, I was going to say, I live all of my time on an American airplane, but the only one I've been on like that is maybe Alaska or...
Okay. So Alaska is now bought Virgin, and Virgin is very similar to Blue Jet. So it was a Blue Jet plane. They're very known for doing unusual things, and they came after... Virgin. So Virgin also, I've heard lots of stories about Virgin.
Yeah, Virgin does that. They're the only one that international.
They do. And Blue Jet, I actually knew nothing about. I think it was my first time on Blue Jet, but I was so amazed. And he actually got into the cockpit and flew the plane. It wasn't even a joke. He actually got.
Yeah, they're a great brand. They just have, and they're really smart about it. And they actually care about people. When they went public a few years ago, they had this fascinating way of really connecting the travelers to the public offering, which when you think about airplanes, you don't think about a business that thinks like that. And so from the hospitality side, It's a
Absolutely.
fascinating example of customer service and really being centric to the experience. I love it.
Well, I don't know if you know the story, and I can't remember his name. I did try to look him up, but I couldn't remember his name. But the owner, the guy that started it, it's not the same person that started it, but the guy that started it came from the hospitality side. He was involved in the travel agency business and was very involved in timeshare deals and putting together. He was, I think, the first guy that put together whole timeshare offerings and packages. That's what I wanted to say. Like you buy your flights and your holiday at the same time. And he gave that whole service. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he was the first guy that invented e-ticketing. But I can't swear on that, but I have a feeling that I remember reading something about him. Fascinating.
Well, it was too good a story to not get you to tell it. So,
Yeah.
But I suppose we should probably talk about virtual reality.
Yes.
That's what theoretically this is about.
Okay, well, I can get even more excited about virtual reality than traveling. I promise you. I can do a better job on that.
So you've seen the demo, and at some point in time, you start to realize, hey, there's something here when it comes to it. So why do you believe that virtual tours are something that's, or what made you believe that virtual tours are going to be something that would be effective, and that, kind of what are the pros and cons of doing it that way as opposed to a more traditional site visit?
Okay, so, Lindsay's, you're from the events, you're both from the events world. So what are we the best at doing as events professionals? We're storytellers, right? We are the best storytellers at the best possible time. All of us, we're like professional storytellers. We can tell a story, but what happens on the other side? Every single person that's on the other side has this blank face because their imagination is nowhere near in the same level as your imagination, your creativity, or even anywhere in the world of your, visual, thoughts that are going on in your head while you're telling the story. So you are convinced that they've understood everything, that they got everything, and you just have this blank face on the other side that's like, what? What do you mean? And we've all been in that situation. And when virtual reality, and what I saw for the very first time in 2016, was our stories coming to life, was the ability to really create a story and be in a visual space while you're actually telling your story. So if you can actually transport you and your clients into a space and walk them, talk them, and actually then put the tables out and put the linens out and put some lighting in and change some chair settings all in real time, then something starts creating in a visual way that totally invites the client to participate and get excited with you. There's an actual excitement. And I think that that's the level of what I saw, the excitement on the other side, which got me totally driven because I wanted somebody to have the excitement with me, just didn't want it all on my own. I don't want to be that storyteller on my own. So I think that was really the essence of the excitement.
And the pros and cons of, so here, you talked about.
So the pros and cons are what I was showing you before. This is the first virtual reality wireless goggle that came out in May of 2018. It's called the Oculus Go. They're $199, which is pretty unbelievable price. Okay, they really are, because it's a mini computer in here with a chip and everything, 64 gigs. It's really amazing. But it is the first one. So it's a little big, it's a little bulky, not so comfortable. But like I told you before, remember the first phones, if anybody's out there that's our age group that can remember the first phones, they were a brick as well. And then they only developed very later into these nice, sleek little things. So we're definitely going to come a long way. So there's a 2-hour battery life, which I actually really commend Mark Zuckerberg for doing, because the 2-hour, you get very involved in virtual reality. You get lost in virtual reality. I don't know if you saw the movie Ready Player One, which was the Steven Spielberg movie and a great book. But you really can get quite lost. So Mark Zuckerberg made a 2-hour battery life that with a very short cord, which was very interesting. So the cord cannot be plugged in, and he begged everyone in a video that he has when you go into the Oculus Go, in the safety ones, to unplug and then relax and go back in later. So we're still in the very early stages of motion, of the quality of the actual resolution, but it's pretty amazing for a first stage. I think we're going to go a long way still with all of this. I'm very excited that the Vive HTC is coming out with their first wireless one. It's a couple of $100, a little bit more, but I think it's going to be amazing. I know that the Oculus, the second version of the Oculus Go, which is called the Oculus Quest, is coming out in a couple of months. So already a lot of companies are understanding that this is really a new platform. 171 million Oculus Go was sold from May. So, you know, people are beginning to own them, you know, and have them in their homes, which is exciting.
So from an investment perspective, because there's the money that it takes for the goggles, right? Which I'm not sure, will you have the event planners make that investment as part of just like, it's one more thing we add into our toolkit? Or is that something where the venues would say, oh, we know that you've sent us an RFP, you've expressed interest, we'll send you the headset and do that? Because there's the goggle to watch, but there's also the mapping of the venue, which is not an insignificant cost at this point in time, right?
Right. So that's a great question. Really great question. So what we're doing is we're pouring the expenses to the venues. Okay. If anybody can afford it, it's the venues. It's definitely not the planners. Okay. We work very hard. And it's definitely the venues. Plus, let's be honest, the venues have multiple events where the planner might only do one event at that particular venue. We do many events, but we're all working in different venues. So the idea is that the venue takes responsibility of the charge. We come in, we actually do a 360 scan of the venue. And then what we do that's different than a lot of companies is that we actually model it. We actually bring the 360 photorealistic image into a modeling environment that it can then go back into all seated and become a dynamic tool. Okay, usually when you have a 360 photographic image, it's whatever the image is. So a venue can set up a beautiful spread with the most expensive designers and the most expensive flat florists, and they have this fabulous design, but then every time they're showing it, it's exactly the same thing. Okay, and that venue's having 50 to 100 different designs happening. So when the floor plans can become dynamic, it means that every time they do a layout in all seated, it's going to always look different. You can have square tables, round tables, long tables, you know, whatever. It's always going to have a different approach, which is pretty cool and nobody had seen before. And I think that was one of the exciting things that the venues really like grabbed at and understood the difference between what we were doing. Then the idea is that as the costs of virtual realities will drop, they will come down in the next year or so. We know that Amazon's building a virtual reality store with us, so they will be bringing out their own goggles. We know Apple's bringing out goggles in 2020. So the prices will for sure drop. And truthfully, we believe that the virtual reality goggles will be like another toolkit, like you have an iPad. The iPads will be non-existent. They'll be, you know, or maybe not non-existent. I shouldn't say non-existent, but they'll just be something else in your bag. These will be a lot lighter, a lot smaller, and they'll fit in your bag, and you'll carry them around so that if you're with a client, you can actually go into into the Oculus store, go into the all-seated app, because the Oculus store runs on apps just like the phone, and you actually then go into your app and you type in the venue that you're standing in, and voila, it comes up in virtual reality. So, you know, the idea is that, you know, the venue actually is paying for the bulk of it, but and today most venues are buying in the goggles. I mean, we obviously give one, but for $200, they'll buy one. And if they have a very big client, and you know, I can't really mention any names, but I know quite a few venues that have actually sent them out. Exactly what you said, Lindsay. When they understood it's a big client and there's a big opportunity, $200 is not a lot of money for them to send a nice gift and invite them in to have that experience from their home or destination. Virtual reality is going to be huge on the destination side. This basically becomes the venue on the go. Okay, you wrap it up into a little case like this, and you carry your venue on the go. It's for every venue that sits in New York that wants the LA business. It's for every Minnesota, wherever you are in the world, and you want business somewhere else. You can now take your venue on the go and actually transport that planner in wherever, in Ohio, wherever you are at that particular moment. That's pretty cool. That's different.
It is. I want to follow up just a little, because you've kind of a little bit glossed over the experience itself. Like I want to be really clear with folks that this is a really cool thing. So you put on the VR headset, and I've had the opportunity to see it in action. And so, yeah, you are dropped into that venue, right into the middle of the ballroom, totally photorealistic. And then, you can move around, in this way and that way pretty freely. And then you're able to drop into that ballroom, like you say, fully 3D models of this chair setup or that chair setup. What does it look like in theater? What does it look like in rounds? What does it look like with a head table? So it is really, really very effective way of getting a visualization of what that event is, what that venue is going to look like, approximation of what your event is going to look like in that venue. And, what I'm kind of excited about is as this technology, gets better and better, you can really start to feel things like, wow, those tables are actually really close together. Whereas in the past, you'd look at it on the paper, CAD drawing or something like that. You go, well, that looks like that'd be okay. But then you get there on site, everything gets set up, and you're like, oh man, this is going to be really tight as people are coming in and sitting down for dinner. So I'm really excited about those opportunities, and you're starting to get that feel through a product like All Seated.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. The reaction of people, we show it around obviously to hundreds of people. And the reaction is pretty unbelievable. People cannot believe. So the Oculus Go has a trigger. So you actually don't physically move. You actually have your trigger that moves you, because it's actually quite dangerous in virtual reality to move around. You can bump into walls and hit yourself. And so you literally sit on your couch, and this little device, which is the controller, you click and it actually moves you around in the virtual reality. And it's like what you said, you're walking everywhere. And then All Seated has a menu that you drop down a menu in virtual reality, and a menu comes up and you can choose templates, you can build out, and then things just populate into the world, into the virtual world. But it's in your world, it's the reality. You're actually in the Plaza New York or in the Mandarin or wherever you are, you're actually physically standing there. And because virtual reality is so immersive, you really, I told you, it's very hard to know whether it feels so real, you actually feel that you're there. And I love the way that you said about, you walk the tables. It's so real that you actually feel that you're hurting yourself if you walk into the table. You're actually not, but you actually, your mind thinks you are. It's also pretty cool that not only do you think that you're walking into something, but you can actually go and walk on the stage and stand on a stage and oversee how it's going to be. You can walk your clients from the elevator into the lobby, into the room, so they have the flow. If you go to the next stage, which I'd love to touch a little bit, because there's obviously a lot to discuss here, but from operational setups to training to security, this is used in so many areas, and we're only just touching on the surface of where virtual reality is going to go. I mean, we're in the very, very early stages of this. But if you let your mind wander a little bit, there's going to be amazing things still to happen.
Well, that's actually someplace, Sandy, I'd love to come back to. You guys had an amazing blog post recently that was talking about how virtual reality could be used for safety training. And I know that that's something that's on every event professional's mind. It feels like every other day we're hearing something happen. And so can you tell us a little bit more? Have you seen it like in a use case that you could kind of describe how event planners are doing it? Or somewhere where what's an ideal situation?
Yeah, so we're doing a little bit of beta testing. It's not quite available yet, but the beta testing is that you'll come into a venue and it will immediately alert you to where the exit signs are. So almost like an airplane to some extent, the exit signs flash, In a venue, the exit signs will start flashing. So the first thing that you'll want to give to your group that's come in, whether it's a training group or even if it's just a team of people that you're beginning to start working with, you're going to be able to immediately focus on where the exit signs are. You're going to be able to have arrows that will be pointing them and showing the direction of how the flow of the traffic should go. Because you might want to have half the room that can be pushed to the front of the room and half the room that can be pushed maybe if there's an exit in the back of the room. So immediately the room will have arrows on it and sort of like highlights where the safety directions and where everything that anybody that's in that training will understand where it will go. On more of the operational side, we're highlighting where all the electrical outlets are in the walls and how cables should be run. So specifically, cables should be run exactly on the planning side, which is so important for us, okay? How many times have we been in an event and we're like cringing because we can only find one plug, outlet, what you call it in America, right? And we're like, how can a room only have one outlet? You know, you don't even imagine that.
And it's always in the most inconvenient place, right? So you run a drop and you like have to stretch it across 15 tables and you're like, please don't step on the thing. I know it's
exactly. So when you come into a room now in virtual reality, these are things that you'll be alerted to immediately, so that either you'll decide, okay, this is not a venue for me because I obviously can't deal with one outlet, or, you know, this is amazing because it's got an outlet in every 10 feet. It's got a space, you know. So those things that, you know, we as planners know a lot about, but we're not, you know, how many site tours do you have to go to just find out that information? Because you don't even get that information. You're never going to get it in a diagram that they're going to send you in a PDF. They're not going to volunteer that information over the phone. So a lot of us are wasting a lot of time, you know, just going into a room because we really need to know about the outlets. It sounds ridiculous.
No, I mean, I have actually turned venues down because they haven't had enough power. I mean, it's totally valid.
It's not at all ridiculous, and anybody who's listening is not seeing all of the happy dances that I'm making during this conversation. Being able to, as a technical person, walk into virtual reality, you know, into a ballroom and be able to see where the outlets are, where they're located, how many of them there are, and for me, things like rigging points and power drops and all of those kinds of things. Totally, I can't wait for this test.
Exactly. We had a sound and lighting guy the other day with us, and he went berserk when he realized that, you know, this was going to be a really easy job for him because he could immediately see where all the riggings were and where he was going to place all his lighting, you know. And a lot of times you go in blind. You just have you just pray that there's going to be somewhere to hang it up, or you come with tons of material that, you know, can cost you another van to get there, you know. So a lot of that is going to be amazing for us on the operational side. And I think that the security side, we're speaking to quite a few people. We have a think tank group. If anybody's out there that is interested to join some of our groups, we'd highly recommend you can email me at sandy@allseated.com. I'd love to hear your opinions, and if you want to be involved, we always work with new products and new ideas with teams of people. We never do this on our own. We are totally driven by the industry. And so that's something that we'd love to hear if anybody out there has got thoughts on this, because it is a lot of thoughts today. Security is probably one of the, you know, considering we're in the events industry, I think security is touched on very lightly because people are scared. I just think people are nervous about it. You know, everybody just prays it doesn't happen to them. You know, everybody just goes in, okay, if I don't talk about it, it's not going to happen, right? It's like one of those situations. And today, you know, we go to conferences and, you know, you've got the odd person that will get up there and say, no, you got to be really ready for an emergency or a situation, and you have to be prepared. And I think just by knowing your space and knowing how your venue works for you, you know, don't put a table in front of an exit sign, and don't have a buffet table right in front of your exit sign. You know, things that, you know, for us, when you've got just a 2D diagramming floor and we're not really sure where the exits are, we're going to put a buffet table there because it probably will work for us. You know, it looks good. But when you're walking around virtual reality, it's exactly like you said, you can feel where the space is. You actually know if something can work. And if, God forbid, there is an accident or there is an emergency, you're going to manage it. You're going to be okay with it.
We do have some questions coming in from the chat. Heather Elise wants to know, are there any hotels that are currently using the goggles? And she said she hadn't really seen anybody advertising this as an option yet for site visits. And also mentioning that there was a really good point about the cost, that, you know, even a headset at a couple $100, I'm assuming is what she's meaning, is a lot cheaper than hosting an overnight and an F&B and all that kind of stuff. So there's going to be a cost savings, maybe some upfront money for the room mapping and things like that. But
yeah. So we've got about 100 venues, just over 100 venues that are in virtual reality today, mainly on the East Coast. We kind of are working in regional so that we can bring a little bit more of a mass. Virtual reality and the walkthroughs are in beta testing. They're not live yet, but we do hope to go live with them towards the end of the year. They're really working well. People are invited into it. Again, if you want to be part of some of the beta testing and you are on the East Coast, we do have a lot of venues that are available to be part of that beta testing. And it's very cool. It's actually a little scary at the beginning because all these avatars are walking around and, you know, you're just one of many in a room. And but, you know, think of the future, where we're going to go with the future with this. Think of the languages. We're going to have bilingual translation in virtual reality. You can have people from all over the world meet you in virtual reality in one group session, and everything will be simultaneously translated. I mean, it's working today, simultaneous translation, so it will work in virtual reality, and you'll be taking the tour at the same time. You know, you're not going to have to worry about the French not wanting to speak English to the Americans, and vice versa. You know, it's going to be totally transparent in the way that we're going to communicate together and actually visually see things all in the same direction, which is cool. Because at the end of the day, the way that we see things is all the same from wherever you are in the world, right? It's like, you know, whether you're in China, Russia, London, Tel Aviv, America, you're all seeing everything the same. We're speaking different languages and we're, you know, we might be communicating differently, but visually we can all see something the same. We've all got the same pair of eyes. So that's pretty cool.
So if I'm a planner, I'm wanting to put a new event on and I've got 6 cities I'm considering. Would I go to you now to set it up, to make sure my site visits are there? Would I go through the venue? You talk a lot on your website about the collaborative planning process.
Yes.
How does one get started? Where do all the stakeholders in this pretty complicated, you know, a contract negotiation is not an easy road to walk some days anyways. What does it look like with this part of your process in there?
Okay, so let's go back a step, because you're right. It's it all sounds very sort of like light and easy, but it's still, like I said, virtual reality is still in the very early stages. You know, we're backing it. Billions of dollars are backing it, not us with billions of dollars, but billions of dollars are being invested in it. So it is by far one of the next platforms that is going to be very successful out there. But let's take a step back. So All Seated started in 2012, where we built a platform. Okay, we built a software product that you could go into. Okay, you can register in All Seated. Planners can register and get up to 10 events for free. If you want a few more events, you can call me. I have some connections. But anyway, you can definitely get the majority of your events there. You can see I'm very pro planners. I'm very protective of my planners out there. Anyway, so what you do is you go into All Seated. Now, today we have over 100,000 scaled floor plans. And I have to say that was one of my biggest excitements of when I started the company. That was one of the biggest challenges that I personally wanted to do. I wanted that every floor plan in there for all of us planners around the world, we were going to have a scaled floor plan. We did not have to be the architect. We did not have to be the CAD designer, the drawer. We needed to come in there, pull up a floor plan, and be 100% guaranteed that this was to scale. And today we really did that. We built an open source library of floor plans that every single planner can have access to. You can have a 2D diagram. When you click on the button, when you see 3D, actually goes into the very early stages of 3D, which we did very early on in the process, because again, my developers are gamers. So it's in the operational stage of black and white, but like I think you mentioned earlier on that even just to have a walk around, even if it doesn't have the photorealistic view, just to have that sense of walking through the tables to make sure that the space is leveled and you really can get the waiters through. Because if you have the tables too close and you can't get the waiters through, that also ruins an event. There's no question about it. It ruins an event. So just having that relaxation, that little bit of relaxing mode that you can click on that button, have that black and white version from an operational standpoint, that's available today with about close to 100,000 floor plans. So, go in there, challenge me. If the floor plan's not there, send it to me in a PDF and we'll do it for you. That's how committed we are to building out floor plans.
I love that.
Okay, so you do that. Now, that's a collaboration system. Today, that already is a collaboration system. A planner can come in, pull up a floor plan. She can invite the venue. She can invite a designer. She can invite the sound and light people. She can bring in real time as many people as she wants to show the 2D diagram and then the basic 3D element of the walkthrough to as many people as she wants. That works today on a browser experience. Okay, so that's from your desktop, from your laptop, from an iPad, not mobile. We don't support mobile that much because it's still very small, the mobile screen. But we do support the tablets. So you have that today, it's available, and the collaboration begins. So when we started to bring virtual reality, two things changed. The button where you click on the 3D to the venues that already have had the photorealistic and they've had the camera image and they've had the modeling, when you now click on that 3D button, you see the actual model in the browser. Okay? And that today, again, is working through a collaboration system. It's really cool. Like if anybody wants to go, I can just ramble off a few, if you just want to go and have fun and test it out. The Mandarin Oriental in New York, the Pierre, the Plaza, the Conrad, the Gotham Hall. There's many. If you actually go to the All Seated YouTube channel, we have a lot of videos of a lot of properties that are out there. We don't publicize it heavily because today it's in beta testing. So we still like to keep it under wraps. We don't want hundreds of thousands of people using it.
It'll be our secret. We'll only tell all of the people.
But you can go in and have a little fun. And the way that you can only work with virtual reality today is if a venue invites you into the system. A planner cannot yet find virtual reality. She has to go, but we are working on it. It's coming out in the next beta, in the next stages, and it will still happen in 2019. This is not something that is going to be in 2020.
That's fantastic.
This is something that's going to start happening in 2019. So we're in the stages of really and heavy development of really working in that. So we're around the corner. It's happening. But today there's a lot of other elements that can be used that are also very powerful. Seeing anything in a 3D environment is very powerful today. Does that help a little bit of the understanding of it?
It does, but so I would still go about my normal process where I would call the Hilton or the Conrad and I would say, I want to come in, I want to take the hotel over. I'm interested, but I can't make it to New York, though I am familiar with your property. And we would work out some kind of exchange where I would use my own goggles or there. So it would be, you're more of a supporter that helps us get in there from a collaboration standpoint. And then once I book with them, let's say I'm using Brandt in Minneapolis, I'm based in Texas, the property's in New York, we can all come together in that virtual tour and it becomes basically a playground where we can build the experience.
Exactly. I love that word. It's a playground. You have totally got it, Lindsay. It's a playground where everybody will, and it's funny you say that because you're obviously hearing that I'm using the gaming environment, but it really is a game. It's a playground.
We have a couple of clients who use VR and they adore it. I mean, it really does change the way that you're able to manipulate the space. So.
Yeah, I mean, I really highly recommend, it's very hard to describe the experience. You have to put that pair of goggles on. Mm-hmm. The minute you put it on for the split second that you're in there, you totally understand what we're talking about. You cannot understand an immersive experience until you've actually had it. The only thing that I always try to explain it is if you were Trekkies or Star Trek fans and you understood how you could jump from one planet to the next, that's almost how you could envision how you are. You could be transported from one planet to the next, right?
Yes.
That's how we describe it.
From a venue perspective then, because we've talked a lot about the planners, you've got 100 properties mapped so far. So I'm a venue and I'm building a new convention center in Memphis, right? Patrick Aversa's coming in, he's building this great new place. What is it, how can they get virtual reality to become part of their conversation as they're bringing people in and helping them better see this new identity they're creating for themselves as a city?
Okay, so we just had an experience. We can do one step better than that. So you've got a venue that hasn't even launched. You've got a venue that's being built. Okay, so the Cipriani in New York have a new venue that's coming out. It's not open yet. It's going to be another 6 months or 8 months, and probably with delays, who knows. We actually built the whole venue in virtual reality before it's built. So if you're a venue and you want to pre-sell, okay, and you want the planners to see your fabulous space, and you know what your blueprints are, and you have to know a little bit your materials of what you're going to do. You know, you need to know a little bit of the design. We actually can pre-build it for you. Your planners can come in. It is a real wow. It's really amazing. They were blown away. We just showed it to them a couple of days ago. And they gave us blueprints. They gave us, samples of the carpets, a little bit of photographs of the lighting. And we have designers. We have a 3D development studio that works on modeling. They're amazing designers. And they can actually pretty much model anything. It's really unbelievable. And they built this. So we can go that one step further of the properties that are not even built. And, many venues are even having facelifts, or they're having renovations, or they're doing lots of work on their properties. We can help you actually get ready for that launch of when you're ready to go into the next stage. So
maybe that's where the AR comes in. We've come to the property, we've already booked, but you're like, look at our new spa.
Exactly. And we love AR. We're, talking a little bit about AR. I think AR is fantastic for like the linen companies and for the tableware companies, and being able to, not bring everything out live and have, where linens change every season and tableware is being changed every season, and you can't show your bride 1,000 pieces of china, okay? But in augmented reality, you can have your entire library built out, and I think that's revolutionary for these companies. I really do. I think it's very hard to see an entire space. If like IKEA, I don't know if you've seen what IKEA's done in augmented reality. It's amazing, because that really works. You're in your living room, you want a new couch, and in that small space on your iPad, you can really see what that couch is going to be. You can totally design your new area. House, which is the houzz.com, which is the designer site, are also doing augmented. It's amazing. Now, for us in the events world, when we're in a space that's going to host 1,000 people or 500 people seated, in augmented reality, that's still a complicated process to build out and really feel that you can experience that in an iPad square, in that size. And virtual reality, because you can walk and you can feel the space and the size, that gives us the difference between an event that is for 250 seated, 500 seated, and a house that is got a couch and a chair in it. So we're not quite there yet with augmented reality, but we do believe there are going to be a lot of businesses that are going to use augmented reality.
Well, it's pretty easy to see a future where the virtual reality side kind of helps you select. Let's say you had 5 different venues. You might be able to eliminate one of them by, doing the virtual tours and go, yeah, that's just not going to work for us. And so you've eliminated one whole site visit. and all of the expense and even environmental impact of an additional trip. And then you do go on your site visits, and maybe you can use kind of the augmented reality once you're there on the site, and to the point where we eventually get like a HoloLens or something like that, where the technology is again getting smaller, and so you're not necessarily doing gorilla arms, trying to augment a reality.
Yeah.
But then when you're on site, and then you can do the hey, I want to see where all the outlets are, and blink, and it shows you
exactly. And
these two techs can really go together.
Yeah, that's, by the way, called mixed reality. There is something called mixed reality. And mixed reality is going to bring the world of virtual reality and augmented reality together. It's not available yet, but like companies like Magic Leap, which have invested billions of dollars, and they're the ones that are bringing out the glasses that when you're in a space, I don't know if you've seen the videos, but they're unbelievable. You're in a giant stadium, and all of a sudden a whale splashes in front of you, and you suddenly think you're in the Antarctica, and whales are flying around with you. It's the experience is truly amazing, and that will be when they mix the realities together, and that's going to be also a very big part of the future. There's no question about it. And it's exciting. I think for our industry in particular, this is probably one of the most exciting times to be in with technology, because it's really a revolution that as such a visual, we are such a visual team of creatives, that to be able to have this tool that is going to be out there to tell those stories is game-changing. It's totally game-changing. Who would have ever thought that we're going to be able to do that, in our industry, for us? We're not going to have the boards and the files and the this and the that and the samples and whatever. It's just one piece of technology, and we come in, and it's going to be amazing, really amazing.
All right, so we're kind of getting to the tail end, although I want to find you at the next trade show we are both at together, and we are spending hours together with 2 bottles of champagne, because this is so nerdy and delightful, and we're going to be best friends, Sandy. You don't know,
absolutely,
but we're going to work it out. So part of what we do at the end of every podcast is we always ask you to share one tip for planners that you would help them in doing their job. So if you could only pick one, what's your one tip for event planners?
Okay, so I'm going to steal this tip, because I've been very lucky to have Mindy Weiss, which a lot of us planners know who that is. She's on the LA side, Mindy Weiss, and she does a lot of celebrity events, and she does corporate stuff as well. But Mindy always will tell you, if you get a chance to sit with her, or if you've watched one of her channels or anything, she will always say to you, let your customers, let your clients do a lot of the work for you. So we're in a world of the millennials today. And while we always complain that the millennials this, the millennials that, they end up doing a lot of work for us. She said, there is nothing like a millennial walking into a room with a board, a Pinterest board or a hard copy board of every vendor that they've researched and looked into and they've approved and they love, and they're still paying us the same amount of money. So if they come with all their vendors and all their people that they want to use, we should sit back a little bit and enjoy the fact that we're getting paid exactly the same amount of money and they've done all the work for us. I love that story.
That's actually very smart. All right, and then thinking along the same veins, we have a lot of different listeners. So do you have any new and cool resources that you use? Websites you visit all the time, blogs you love to read, books you've been absorbing, gadgets, anything like that?
So yeah, I'm a huge tech user on products. Our entire company is. But personally, I love Slack. I'm a huge Slack user. If you do not know Slack, I highly recommend you go there. It can save you personally and as a company hours and hours of times of finding things. So Slack is, just if anybody doesn't know, Lindsay, you are shaking your head here. You obviously know a lot about it. But basically, Slack is a communication tool. It's like a high-level WhatsApp, Messenger. How else would you explain it, Lindsay? It's like a combination.
It's like a water cooler conversation for teams where you don't have to have but there's an audit trail. It's fantastic.
It's amazing. So how we use it in our office, just to give you a little bit of advice, is we use it for all the chatter. So my email now doesn't get blocked by everybody in my company sending me tons of emails, and I can't get to my customers because I got to surf through 100 emails of just yes, no, maybe, okay. I mean, that's really what most of chatter is. So anything that anybody wants to communicate goes through, you can put attachments, unless you are CCing me on a customer email, you are not allowed to send me anything through an email that it just will not get answered. So it cut out hours of my time of just going through emails to answer things. It's really efficient. I'm a huge user of it. Another product, just on the product side, I'm a very big user of Trello, anything to do on product management, to organize yourself when you're traveling a lot, or when you have a lot of tasks, or you're managing a lot of people. Very, very difficult to do it on just, a regular piece of paper anymore. And it's not efficient. It really isn't efficient. You lose those pieces of paper, which I've done many a time. So having a Trello board, which is a board basically that is everybody's invited into, it's a collaboration. I'm very into collaboration systems. I love the whole concept of it. It means that everybody's involved in real time at the same time. And nobody can tell you they didn't see anything. Nobody can say I didn't get that. Nobody can say I didn't hear about it. It's there. It's in black and white, right? Those are the best things. In regards to reading, I do read a lot. I'm on planes a lot, so I watch a lot of TV. But on most of the occasions that you have to turn your TV off, I like to read a lot of techie biographies. Inspiration in technology companies is really important. As you build a company, or any company, if you're a planner, as in technology, you need to be inspired. You need to believe in yourself. You need to be continuously told. It doesn't matter, you can be successful today and then you can have a shitty day tomorrow, excuse my language, but not every day runs smooth. So I read a lot of autobiographies of a lot of stories of companies. Doesn't matter whether it's a tech company or Vidal Sassoon, how he started his business, or Elon Musk, to talk, anybody that's had something successful that can give me a tip in how to work my company or how to work my life. I love reading those type of stories.
Fantastic. All right. Anything else?
So I want to offer, again, that if anybody wants to be involved or loves technology, or from being in the events professional world, thinks that they have ideas for companies like ours and how they can, think of a tool that could even enrich more of our lives, I would like to challenge you to be in contact with me on Sandy, SANDY.hammer, or Sandy, either one works, sandy.hammer or sandy@allseated.com. I answer a lot of emails a day, so I'm not scared to get a lot of emails. I love to be in correspondence.
Just not from your team.
Right? Not from my team. All my team say is yes, okay, sure, maybe, and I want to kill somebody.
I love it.
Exactly. So please feel free to do that. Any planners, if you're out there, we would like to give 10% discount if you do want to go over and buy into All Seated. You can also write to me and say that you saw my podcast today, and we'll honor that 10% discount.
Very nice. Well, Sandy, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. You've already given out your email address. Is there any other places that people might want to follow you if they want to, keep track of what you're up to on Twitter or Instagram or anything like that?
Yeah, we have. We're on every handle as All Seated. So you can tweet us. We have an Instagram following. We have a huge Facebook following. We run great webinars with a lot of industry people. So we have a lot. We try to do a lot for our community. We really do. We try to educate. We're big believers in it. We're big supporters of it. So anytime that we can bring other people in to educate and help our industry grow, that's where you'll find us. So we're involved in a lot of conferences, speaking slots, but everything's pretty much on our Facebook, YouTube channel, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter.
Nice. Well, thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you for hosting me. It's an honor. Thank you.
Thank you all for watching and listening wherever you're at today as you listen to this amazing, incredible show. We want to thank Heather and Reed for joining us in the chat. So Heather, you're going to have to tell us someday if it's Heather Elise, all one word, or if it's Heather Elise. You'll have to tell us. Thank you for joining us in the chat. We hope you will join us in the chat at event-icons.com so we can record this show live. You can watch behind the scenes while we get things set up and ready and going every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, again, at event-icons.com. You can sit there, you can join in the chat and throw questions to the icons of the event industry. It's available. The show is available the following Tuesday on all of your favorite podcast apps, whether that's iTunes or Pocket Casts or Google Podcasts, whatever floats your boat. If there is an app that we're not on, let us know so we can try and be on it. The best place to watch, however, is live at event-icons.com. There you're going to see the show notes, the links to all the resources that get shared, and join the chat, like we say, right there on the page. We want to know what you think. Use hashtag #EventIcons and let us know, who you'd like to see on the show, what you thought of this, what do you think about this? Are we going to be able to replace at least a few of our site visits with virtual reality? Let us know what you think, and again, use hashtag #EventIcons. We'll see you there. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Event Icons.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of #Event Icons. To catch the transcription and all of the resources mentioned, head to www.helloendless.com/blog. This week's episode will be posted and available by next Tuesday. Also, let us know what you thought about this week's episode. Share your biggest takeaway and join the social conversation. Sponsored by Little Bird Told Media. Just tag your post with #Event Icons. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on #Event Icons.